The North American model of wildlife conservation is the guiding principle for wildlife management in North America. There are 7 pillars which guide this model, which I'll describe in a separate video. Recently in Michigan, Pillar 6, which is science is the proper tool to discharge wildlife policy, has recently been violated by the Natural Resources Commission, otherwise known as the NRC, who caved to perceived public pressures and closed 3 months of coyote hunting season with no scientific backing. I needed to understand better how this would affect hunters and anglers in the state of Michigan, where I grew up. So I talked to the staff at Michigan United Conservation Clubs, MUCC, to clarify the issue. In this 3-part episode, we will learn how this affects not only Michigan, but potentially the rest of the North American continent. Justin Tomei is the Policy and Government Affairs Manager and has gone to bat against similar issues many times in his career in conservation.
So I got involved in conservation because I want my daughter to have the same opportunities when she grows up that I did growing up. And in my mind, in the mind of MUCC, this is kind of cresting the hill of that slippery slope. And it's something people may say, well, I don't care about 3 months of coyote season. And it's so much bigger than that. This is the first significant restriction of opportunity based solely on perceived and unsubstantiated social pressures. And that just sets such a dangerous precedent. I'm worried that this sets the precedent that's going to result in my daughter not having the same opportunities that I did. I don't know the genesis of this change. The first time I heard about it was at a stakeholder user group in September. I think it was around Labor Day weekend of last year, 2023. And at that meeting, many of the people present voted to support the closure. Many of those groups since that time have changed their position. The rank and file of Michigan hunters are against this closure. There is a small group of people that feel that the right thing to do would be to make this closure. Their reasons, I don't know. I don't want to put words in their mouth or assume. What I will say and what I've communicated to them and anyone that will listen, and what MUCC has communicated, is that once we kind of lose this idea of scientific management, once we cease to rely on that as kind of the driving factor behind our game management decisions, we lose. We lose the game. It's over. Our argument is that the commission has a responsibility and legal charge to follow the best available science when setting game management decisions. And in this instance, we feel that the commission shirked their legal responsibility and closed the season based solely on perceived public perception and unsubstantiated claims of negative public attitude towards coyote hunting. What we took to the commission was a few things. One, you can never kill enough coyotes to have a population level impact. You'd have to kill over 90% of them. It's just not feasible. But you can locally reduce densities during these spring periods. And during these spring periods, removing coyotes from the population results in higher densities of game populations, deer, turkeys, whichever case may be. So we took several hundred pages, a stack about that thick, of peer-reviewed research with us to the commission, showed them what we had, cited the biologists that did the research, some of the conclusions that were drawn, and tried to lay out that this spring period is the best time to manage those coyote populations. And when we stop following the science as a conservation community, or in this case, the commission, we run the risk of kind of losing it all. And it won't happen all at once. It'll happen incrementally with these small, to some seemingly innocuous losses of opportunity. And by the time we realize what's happened, it could all be gone. This case, it's 3 months of coyote season, but it's a much bigger issue than that. Anti-hunters view all common methods of bear hunting as objectionable. And how long until we're staring down the barrel of people view bear hunting negatively? There are extremely good reasons why we need to manage bear populations, and we could lose that opportunity if we follow down this philosophy of social perceptions guiding our management decisions. Sound scientific management, it's an objective shield that we have to kind of help stave off these attacks from anti-hunters to take away all opportunity because someone's feelings might get hurt. So it's the biological justification, the sound scientific management needs to be the foundation on which we make every single decision regardless of the game species. Because anti-hunting advocates, I call them anti-conservationists because they ignore science. They don't care about the science of game management. They care about their emotional pleas. And they can afford to actually do the death by 1,000 cuts, where, maybe as hunting groups, we don't have the resources to go to pursue new opportunity piecemeal, a little bit at a time. But yeah, they could go after 3 months of coyote season, or there's a very real likelihood that they kind of sense the blood in the water now and want to go after predator contest or bobcat hunting or dog hunting or bait hunting bears. I don't think it would be crazy of me to say that they don't want you to hunt deer. And so it's exceptionally dangerous, in my opinion, that they see this little crack. And, from our perspective, we're going to continue to work with any conservation or hunting organization that wants to further the cause of conserve, protect, and defend and enhance Michigan's outdoor heritage. And so, we may have had a disagreement on this issue, but we're gonna do our best to work in lockstep with any organization that wants to further the mission and like I said, make sure my daughter has the same opportunities that we all did. Another part, and this is separate from the science, the argument that we made to the commission, a lot of the supporters of the closure fell back on this idea that, the nuisance control program exists on private ground, meaning that if a coyote is present and causing damage or present where they could imminently cause damage, you just have carte blanche to continue to hunt coyotes year-round on private land. We made the argument that that's not true for a few reasons. What constitutes damage, we argued, is a very gray area. It would be up to the individual discretion of the law enforcement agency. Secondly, the nuisance control program is not governed by the commission. It exists only at the discretion of the DNR director. We're not particularly worried about our current DNR director, but we don't know who the next one will be or the one after that. Third is it creates an equity issue, kind of a pay-to-play, where if you don't have private land, you can't afford it, you're just not able to hunt now for a quarter of the season. And basically, since that time, since we made that argument to the commission, the department has come out with guidance on how the nuisance program can be applied to coyotes on private land. You basically have to have livestock. If you don't have some sort of livestock, the guidance that has been laid out says that you have no ability to hunt coyotes on private land. So it's kind of an I told you so, and I hate to be that crass about it, but it took less than 2 weeks for this guidance to come out and say that exactly what we said. It is not carte blanche for individuals to just continue hunting on private land. In Michigan, anyways, most of the DNR budget is funded through licensed hunters, anglers, and trappers. State game areas are purchased with Pittman-Robertson dollars. The coyote thing is just a microcosm of what's happening. You look at Colorado, who's probably the biggest one going through it right now, as it were, where their seasons, their opportunity are being eroded little by little. And if you followed that back, went upstream from that, you're probably going to find one little crack in the dam that nobody thought of. The worry is that this 3-month coyote closure is that teeny tiny little crack in the dam. And so our job as we talk about this as conservationists, as Michigan United Conservation Clubs, is to explain to the hunting public, to our membership, to anyone that will listen, is that this is so much bigger than that 3 months of coyote hunting. It is a foundational issue for our organization, for our outdoor heritage, and that education needs to go as far and wide as we can go with it so that we don't end up like Colorado and go through what they're going through, Washington State. I joke that the bastion of hunting rights that is California, they still have year-round coyote hunting. So it's so much bigger than 3 months of coyote hunting. And yes, you can talk about it as maybe the trigger that brought the fight for our outdoor heritage to Michigan, but it needs to be thought about in this big, broader perspective because we're facing a bigger fight here. It's not about killing stuff. It's about proper, sound management of the resource. So one of the things I do in my capacity at MUCC is I serve on a various number of stakeholder committee groups. And the Bear Forum is a good example. We go to the Bear Forum every year. Every year the biologists lay out harvest totals, population density estimates, all this biological data, and they make a recommendation to us based on that. And almost every single person in that group, almost every single time, when the biologist lays out a clear, concise, biological justification for lowering a quota on a unit, for instance, we as conservationists support it because it's the right thing to do. And when that justification is there and when it's sufficient, I vote for it in my capacity at MUCC every time, and I will every time, because that biological justification, that biological rationale, whether it's bears, coyotes, deer, trout, bluegill, whatever it is, it's the most important thing we have going for us as we continue to work and protect our outdoor heritage. What can people do? I think that they need to start showing up to meetings. We need to make the DNR, when they book their rooms for the NRC meetings, pick a room that's twice as big, because so many people come and get involved. The commissioner's phone numbers and emails, they're on the internet. You can call these people. A lot of times you're going to get a response because the number of people that communicate with them, their constituents, is fairly low. It's not like trying to get a hold of a legislator or something. So if you email a commissioner and let them know your thoughts on something, there's a good chance you'll get a response from that commissioner. Beyond that, you can join the organizations that align with your beliefs, whether it's MUCC, which would be my first choice, but if it's MTPCA or NDA, whatever the conservation organization is, join those groups that align with your beliefs, because they have the tools and the reach, beyond the commission that you may not have, and they're able to represent your views. That's my job at MUCC. I'm the full-time policy guy and lobbyist, so I do this every day, all day. A lot of times I joke that I talk to the politicians so you don't have to. So, but you should. You absolutely need to. So turn your voice into 40,000 voices by joining a conservation organization that aligns with your beliefs. The other thing we can do to educate non-hunters is Michigan has something called the Michigan Wildlife Council. It's funded. They get a portion of your license sales. And the Michigan Wildlife Council's task is to educate the non-hunting public, particularly urban centers, Detroit, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, on the importance of hunting and conservation. Because I mentioned my dad doesn't understand how hunting and conservation is paid for, thinks it's his tax dollars, probably so do a lot of people in these urban centers. So the Michigan Wildlife Council, they do advertising campaigns to inform those non-hunting public of the benefits of hunting, why hunting's conservation, that hunters and anglers and trappers pay for conservation, in the goal of maybe not making them hunters or consumptive users more broadly, but making them understand it should something like this go to the ballot box, or should they have some decision-making process, just to make them informed citizens. According to their numbers too, they are making a difference. They are moving the needle on that, and that's really promising to hear as well. MUCC represents 40,000 members across the state, a couple hundred member clubs, 200 member clubs. And I personally consider myself kind of a general hunter. I feel like I'm representative of our membership. And I touched on it earlier. Everything that I do every day in my capacity at work is about making sure that my kid is going to be able to hunt someday. And through this whole process, it's shown me that the general sportsman, the general conservationist in Michigan is behind us on this. We are not on shaky ground with our membership. We are not on shaky ground with the Michigan outdoorsman, outdoorswomen, angler, trapper, hunter, whoever it may be. And I think it's time now that we come together to defend this outdoor heritage, to make sure that we don't go down the road that Washington or New Jersey or Colorado or California has done. The fight for our outdoor heritage has come to Michigan. It's time to come together. It's time to work together, and it's time to enable the conservation leaders in Michigan to do what's right to protect what we have here.
Thanks for checking out this episode of the Aptitude Outdoors Podcast. If you would like to get involved, head over to MUCC.org and support them in this fight to preserve the North American model of wildlife conservation.